in the studio, Steve and Mark. We are trying to, let you know about what's going on in the news, what's going on in politics, and kind of let you know how we feel about it. So today's topic is going to be it's a little bit more controversial than maybe we expected. Governor Beshear put out an executive order basically telling people they cannot
talk your kids out of it.
They cannot tell your kids that they're not LGBTQ. Basically, if your 8-year-old comes up to you and says that that they think that they are your 8-year-old girl comes up to you and says, I think I'm a boy, professional people are not allowed to tell them no. A psychiatrist is not going to be able to tell them, is not going to be able to tell them that they have gender dysphoria, or they're not going to be able to argue against that at all. They're not going to be able to say that they're not. And it perplexes me how this can be, Steve. I mean, it's like, how can we? So how can you take away a parent's right to raise your child in your faith?
So let's get into it first. Let me read it to you so that everybody can hear what the proclamation says. Because let's start with the facts, right? So what Governor Beshear did, and you can attest to this when you read it yourself, and this is much like the complaint that Elon Musk has with his own children in the state of California, and obviously this is a proclamation. So essentially, this is
an executive order.
Oh, it is, executive order.
So he is bypassing
government.
He's
and
bypassing the will of the people, because the will of the people are the legislature. The legislature are voted by the people to represent their interest.
So
he's bypassing that because he doesn't trust the people.
All right. It says, and I almost misread this when I first read it, but Governor Beshear signs executive order banning conversion therapy, meaning I was thinking that he was banning anybody who was thinking about converting, like if you wanted to go get therapy.
Absolutely not the same thing.
No. So he was thinking, if you want to go get therapy, if you misread this and then don't read it and you take the title alone, you will be off guard, because it makes you think that, well, if my kid wants to go get therapy for thinking about converting, he's banning it. And first you're thinking, oh, well, great, Governor, that's something we can all agree to. Nope, you got to read it. It is banning. To Mark's point, okay, I have 2 children. If one of my children, boy or girl, comes to me and says, I don't believe I'm the gender I was born as, or I believe I am a homosexual or a lesbian, or of some sexual difference than what we're taught outside of science, okay? We are supposed to treat them, oh, that's nice. But we cannot, as parents, take them to any licensed person in the state who is a counselor, a minister, or anybody. And I'll read this to you. It says, Kentucky cannot possibly reach its full potential unless it is free from discrimination by or against any citizen. Unless our people feel welcome in our spaces, free from unjust barriers, and supported to be themselves, said Governor Beshear, conversion therapy has no basis in medicine or science, and it can cause significant long-term harm to our kids, including increased rates of suicide and depression. This is about protecting our youth from an inhumane practice that hurts them. And in fact, the argument to that statement alone is actually just the opposite. Those children who did some type of conversion in their youth regretted it when they were actually an adult, which is...
His line that says let's see, what did he
first
say
paragraph.
that? He said, I know, I'm in the first paragraph. Conversion therapy has no basis in medicine or science. The thing is that teachers now, some teachers, not all teachers, I don't mean this to be against all teachers, some politicians, some parents, people that are, relatives, that they are now creating they are actually doing conversion therapy on these kids all day to make them believe that they're not who they thought they were. So a little boy may be going through, and they're being inundated on TV, in television shows, on YouTube and things, and they're by relatives,
Indoctrinated.
Parents.
They're being
indoctrinated to believe to convert them from thinking that they're a boy when they were born a boy to thinking that they might be a little girl. And then all of a sudden they come up to mom and dad and say, I think I'm a little girl. And mom and dad really have no recourse. Mom and dad might say, no, you're a little boy, blah, blah, blah. This is what makes a boy. This is what makes a girl. That's what we do as parents.
So let me read the second paragraph, because this is what's going to make our parents upset. It says, the executive order signed by Governor Beshear makes it illegal to use state or federal funds to provide conversion therapy on minors. So once we get to that fact where you know, son or no daughter, that is not true, we're going to go talk to a doctor. What that also says right here in this next sentence, it also gives licensing boards in the state of Kentucky the authority to take disciplinary action against licenses found to have practiced conversion therapy on minors. That means pastorals. That means anybody granted a license in the state of Kentucky who practices this form of therapy or discussion to
they call it therapy, but it's more like you're sitting down and having a discussion. You're going and getting some, it can be. It doesn't. It's not like you're going through
if
like
you're doing
physical therapy. You're basically just having a discussion, and somebody's telling you this, and you're not really that.
But
this is why you are a boy.
If I go to church on Sunday and we're on the subject of Genesis in the Bible, and we talk about God made Adam and Adam to reproduce with Eve, and God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and that becomes a subject. Well, guess what? You're going to lose your license. That's what that says.
You probably see more in Leviticus than any point.
Well, I get that too, but my point is that what limits of reach does this give the authorities that license folks in the state of Kentucky?
Well, it seems pretty broad, but I will say this: I don't think this holds up.
That was a very broad reach. I got it, but the practice.
I don't think this holds up in court in most instances. But this is why it's important to go vote, people.
Well, it says right here, the practice of so-called conversion therapy or reparative therapy is particularly harmful to LGBTQ plus youth. The intent of this practice is to change an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, and methods include aversion therapy.
So the local television affiliate who shows gender affirming programming, I believe that those gender affirming programs are made to indoctrinate and to convert a child from believing in what they actually see and feel into something that, and to tell them that, hey, maybe you're wrong in how you feel. Because maybe your parents has just been telling you the wrong thing. I think that's conversion therapy as well. So they should lose their license to broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, think about this. Conversion therapy goes both ways.
Yes.
They're being inundated with indoctrinating language and visuals, and I get it. They've been teaching these things in schools behind our backs for years, and behind some of our backs, because some of us made the case years ago that the textbooks and stuff that we're seeing have some odd things in them. Mm-hmm. And what and the thing is that he says there's no scientific basis for this, medicine or science base. The thing is that they're basing all of these LGBTQ, all this gender dysphoria or gender the gender spectrum on some very bad science from years and years ago. I think we talked about it a little bit on another program where the two boys are born, and during circumcision, the one boy, his penis was damaged, and so they had to make the decision. The parents they had to make the decision because of the damage
during birth.
This is right after birth during the circumcision, and they said to raise that child as a girl or a boy. And ultimately, that child has come back and said it was they started raising him as a girl, but that was mostly because it was easier on the parents. Now the parents made a decision. They, at the moment they didn't know what to do.
Having this conversation right
you
now.
just think about this, like how do you don't know what to do. But there was a malfunction that you just don't expect to happen. It's very rare that it ever happens, but sometimes it does. And what happened is that the damage was so severe that it was irreparable, and so they had to raise they made the decision to convert this child, this young boy, this little boy, to a girl, and raise him as a girl. Well, they didn't, for years, and there was twins. So this doctor thought this was a great way to study because he had a twin boy and now a girl. And he built all this science supposedly on these two kids and going through all this. And then later on in life, that the one that was raised as a girl had all kinds of mental problems over it, and came out and talked about it. I can't remember the name. I wish I could go and find it, but and that's maybe for another show. But the point is that the these scientists that come up, they are taking data. They are only looking for data that affirms their theory.
So they can spend the money and make the money.
They do. Yeah, it's all about money. It's all about making sure that they are getting prestige. That's what allows Dr. Anthony Fauci to be
I got it.
to go through all that. It's about the climate change. They're telling us that they have said that the reason that they're saying that it's detrimental, that it's going to happen, is because they need money to study their studies.
It's happening over and over enough, and they'll believe it, and then it becomes fact. It's indoctrination. But
yeah, it is. It is. I mean, this and let me tell you something. That's a fascist idea.
Yeah,
that's what fascism does. It controls people through what are the syndicates.
Yeah, so
it controls people through syndicates, and that's exactly what it is. We have the climate change syndicate. You have the gender affirming syndicate. Those syndicates are out there putting out information and creating indoctrinating data so that they can just continue to collect the money.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you're never going to have inclusion when you have varying differences.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see our country move past color, because we're all humans, made of male and female, right? But this one is one that I think is going to be difficult for a lot of people. But I do want to read this real fast. This came from the Commonwealth Policy Center. This was a rebuke.
Yep.
Almost kind of supports where we were talking about. But Commonwealth Policy Center opposed to Governor Beshear's executive overreach. The Commonwealth Policy Center responded to Andy Beshear's executive order banning so-called conversion therapy. Many questions whether it is even happening in Kentucky. KPC Executive Director Richard Nelson is dedicated to preserving the health and well-being of children, but calls the order harmful. This really isn't about some kind of abusive practice as much as it's about the ability of parents to teach their kids moral boundaries and healthy sexual ethics. Parents have the right to guide their children on sexual ethics according to their faith tradition, and they have the right to take their children to counselors who support their beliefs. Nelson said this executive order chills the speech and guidance of biblical counselors who are dedicated to supporting parents and the biblical sexual ethic.
He's absolutely right.
I don't disagree with that. Well, what does make it difficult is while there may be this disagreement, this executive order prevents those families who are low income, whose kids are in public schools, being perversed or influenced
from getting the care that they need.
Yeah, I don't.
Getting the counseling. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know that. I wouldn't say that we have that problem in Meade County, but as a Kentucky state, I'm sure there's going to be barriers or places where more of that would exist than others.
It happened in Meade County. I mean, there's there's a full spectrum of people here in Meade County that have problems. And there's times, I mean, it's like this. It's like when you have a son or a daughter, if you have a son and your son comes to you and you start seeing that your son looks at things that maybe likes things that are a little bit feminine. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking things that are feminine.
You need to explore.
It does not mean that you are gay. It does not mean
But
that
if you get around the wrong crowd,
that you're a girl.
No.
That's the problem. That's the problem. And see,
Well, hold on. Let me get to my thought, because you're going right down where I was going to go.
okay.
So if I'm a low-income family and I'm on some type of Medicaid care because of government subsidy, right? And or you're in one of these situations where you're a single mom and you've got CPS or all these things involved in your case, right? Now your kid's influenced. You're screwed. You are screwed all over, because you can't go and seek out this counseling because you don't have the insurance for it, and two, if you don't allow your kids to do the transition, are you supposed to be in trouble with CPS now, because that's a government entity under the control of the government?
I mean, we can tie this over to amendment number 2.
Yeah,
That's coming because school choice. Because like I said, it's not all teachers.
yeah,
But there's enough of them out there that influence your children,
yep.
and that have enough influence over your children to create problems on how you raise your children. I think that I'm going to say this. I'm starting to believe that certain traditions in our country have started to have outgrown their initial methodology and their initial usefulness. I'm not saying education is not useful. I'm saying that the methods that we're using to teach so many children all at once,
I can tell you right now,
our children are getting lost, and that's why this amendment number 2 is so important. All amendment number 2 does, and you're going to hear tons of lies.
Yeah,
I think they've already spent $2.9 million
from
outside of Kentucky. Actually from the KEA, from the Kentucky Education Authority, or the Association. It's the largest teachers union in Kentucky, and such. The unions are not about protecting your children. They're not about educating your children. They're about continuing to get power. Right. I've talked to many of my relatives and things who are so afraid of they're so afraid of right to work laws and things like that, because not because they believe that all people have a right to work and be able to work under their own conditions and negotiate their own conditions, but because their union will lose power. And that's a wrong way to think. In my opinion, if you're voting strictly on whether your union has power, that means that your union leadership can now usurp you and usurp that power for itself, and not have your best interest as a worker in mind, or the people that you serve in mind. They only care about themselves, and they continuously try to convince you that they're doing this for you, because we're going to get you more money or what have you. That's not all unions, but there are unions that I believe that the teachers union does that. I'm talking about union leadership. I believe that that's one place they do it, especially on the national level. But even in the state level, that you see a lot of the same things, and they're putting your money, your union dues, towards these things. And so here's the thing: all amendment number 2 does, right, is gives the legislature the power. It doesn't move money. It doesn't do anything. All it does is it gives the legislature the power to, or the authority to make legislation that will allow them to say, hey, we can allocate monies to what is it called? To the non-common school system schools, right? Which means private schools, charter schools, things like that. It allows them to be able to take monies and allocate it to those programs. It doesn't shut down your school system. It doesn't. It may put your school system on alert if all of a sudden a charter school pops up and you need to go. And you need
What
to,
are they doing better that we're not doing?
Yeah, exactly. So, and competition on those lines are not a bad. It's not a bad thing. It's a very good thing because now you have to start thinking, okay, I have to produce.
So it's
in
funny
order to
because
right now they don't have to produce because everybody has to go to school.
So I ran into an educator that said, I'm all for it as long as those teachers in private schools have to meet the same certifications. Well, funny thing is there are private schools in Meade County that have teaching credentials from the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
But they won't get re-credentialed because if you're not teaching in a public school, you can't get credentialed because of the way the law is written. So if I'm to teach in one of these private schools, yeah, I think they should be credentialed too. You should have a 4-year degree. But if I don't have a teaching credential and I'm outperforming you as a teacher, what does that say about the credential?
The credential means nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a piece of paper that allows the state that's using it to. The state has used that traditionally to try to control people.
And they're doing
regulations.
it right now because
these are regulations.
Yeah, no, I got it, and that needs to be changed right now because there are teachers that meet the same hours of teaching certification under a different system that actually produces better results than current curriculums in other schools. And that's
not 100%.
No,
there are very good, strong teachers.
Yeah.
I believe Meade County
in public schools too.
I think Meade County is full of public school.
I didn't put labels
teachers.
on the schools. I didn't
there
put the
may
names.
be some that don't. My kids are not in school anymore. My grandkids are. So I don't know all the teachers, but a lot of the teachers that taught my sons are teaching my granddaughter now. So and they have my trust. However,
but I want to be clear. I
don't think the administration has my trust.
Well, I don't. I'm not saying anything about Meade County schools. I'm not.
No, and we're not.
That's why I said.
I just wanted to differentiate to say.
I'm talking from
I'm just trying to verify that we're not.
Yeah,
that we're not saying that this, anything specific is happening in Meade County or what have you. We're saying that there are good cases. There are cases. There is a case to be made that there are bad teachers out there across the state that have that do not have your child's best interest at heart.
No, and if you ever run into a teacher that thinks that they know what your child needs over you as a parent, it's time to get your lawyer because that's got to stop in our school.
It does.
But anyway, I think that the response from the Commonwealth Policy Center nailed it on the head. I think that this was a swipe for the LGBT community and just a continued support for Andy Beshear.
I think it's another step because Andy Beshear wants to be able to run for. He wants to run for president or something someday. So this is more of a national look for him, I think, more than it is for what the state of Kentucky. Because I don't think this is going to hold up in court in Kentucky. So
let's get a case in front of the court.
And the legislature is going to override this
probably in January.
When they come back in session. So
well, interesting. We have Nancy Tate on tomorrow for the leadership, Christians in business and leadership podcast tomorrow. So
we're going to have her on this show again next week. I'd like to try to get Richard Nelson to come on, maybe do a Skype with, or
I think
Skype,
that would be phenomenal.
What's it called, Zoom or something? So I'll give him a call and see if he can.
I'll reach out to him too because I'd probably get him on just from the messenger standpoint, but. I think that would be good for our community. We have a very Christian-based community here in Meade County, so that's what we want you to know what this impact has. Obviously, this is going to be a tough thing for Dr. Martin to take on within the school district internally, as he's probably deals with these cases that occur and tries to do his best to give guidance to the teachers and the principals of our schools so that when they run into these situations, they know how to handle them. But this curveball may disrupt things between our citizens and our Christian values that are prevalent in Meade County that may not be as prevalent through all of our community. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a new challenge.
Because I don't think that we should be so arrogant to think that everybody we come in contact thinks like we do.
No, absolutely no. But
because you and I don't even think the same on everything, but enough to say that we like to be around each other.
Yeah, we both disagree that this is a far overreach.
Absolutely.
Nobody should have the dictation of who my children get counseled by or my ability to instruct them.
So let's think about this. The Democratic Party doesn't want us to have children, so they have Planned Parenthood. Then they want to. So those.
But I can come in here as an illegal or as an alien and have as many as I want.
So they want to reduce the population of the United States as part of their overall policy through abortion and such. And then they want to.
That's a reach.
It's not a reach. It's real.
You think?
No, it's part of the it's part of the climate change agenda.
Okay.
The climate change agenda
I thought they
includes
just wanted to get
reducing
rid
the
of
population.
cows. I just thought they wanted to get rid of
reduce
cows
the population of people as well because we produce because of our footprint. So that's part of their agenda.
Haven't they seen Star Wars?
They
like
have.
a whole planet's made of nothing but buildings and tall buildings.
Yeah.
Look at Tokyo and Hong Kong and China. And they love China. Why? The Democrats love China, and they're vertical. They have vertical zip codes. They don't have horizontal zip codes.
Oh, but they have so much pollution in China.
I know. That's why they live inside of a building with its own environment inside of the.
Right now, China's having a lot of problems with workers. So
that's because they didn't breed enough.
Well, they've reduced their population. Again, then they have. And then they have now the children that the Gen Z that are now they're doing this what they call I can't remember the Chinese word for it, but it's called let it rot. Have you seen this? So children are basically not working. They're staying at home with their parents, and their parents are collecting money for them being there. And they're giving the kids an allowance, and that's how the kids are living. They're not going out into society and working. And so it's basically a sit-down protest that extends all the way out to. So they're having a lot of trouble. So that their workforce is reducing even further. And now, but they're just a few years away from having 50% of their people over like 60 years old or something like that. So it's becoming an issue for them. But that's what it breeds. These are socialist ideas. These come from these are all trying to mold us into a communist society, and whether it's socialism or fascism or what have you. And so I know we did this before, but the difference between a fascist and a socialist are both they're both limbs off the same tree. They're both communist, Marxist ideas, and it's just a matter of how you develop the revolution.
So, so this let the children rot.
Let me finish this.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in a fascist system, they use different what they call syndicates. By putting different syndicates together that will actually lead to the revolution. So you have things like the climate change syndicate, you have the LGBTQ syndicate, you have the migrant syndicate. These are all different pieces that are being utilized to try to force a revolution so that it can overthrow the existing government. The biggest problem they have in the United States, though, is that the government is of people. That you don't have one dictator like a czar or a king. You have people who are constantly being moved in and out. So you're maybe not enough, but that's fascism, and the socialism is much simpler. We're just going to do everything based on the social structure of society, and we're going to pit one part of the structure against another.
So I have a opposing. It's not all exactly like that. Just from what I just quickly read,
you're talking about the
rot. Let it rot is also an occurrence because there was such a shrink when COVID happened that people were forced not to work. And so this generation, actually up to 33 years of age, because
that's your
let me
millennials.
finish. Yeah, let me. So what happens is according to the story, they're climbing this ladder because that's what you have to do, and it's climb this ladder to success, and they feel like they have no purpose, and because they're driven that way. China's economy is driven that way to that expense. In fact, it's actually concerning to China right now, according to this report, because they need the millennials to continue its competitive nature against the U.S.'s economy. But now all these people, they're finding more purpose spiritually. It was talking about some of them, they'll let it rot, that they just have no interest in working that hard for what? They would rather have inner peace or spirituality. They're climbing up to the mountains and going and talking to leaders and meditating and other things they're getting involved with. There was one story about a young lady that quit her job at 33, and now she's a life coach for others that are struggling with the same problem. Why am I climbing this corporate ladder of nowhere and find no purpose in my job? And then back to socialism, it's like the what was the city under the ground because the nuclear bomb went off? Emerald City or something like that. Underground. Anyway, not Emerald City, but
I know what you're talking about. There was
yeah, and you pull a ticket out, and this is your job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's very communal, and there's only so many people left in life. But it had quirky twists.
See, I mean, Marxism says that Marxists said that communism was the natural evolution after. It was the natural progression after capitalism. So everybody's capitalist, and then eventually capitalism would give way, and everybody would become communist, right? But it's never happened in nature. So he said it was the natural progression, but it's never happened in nature. It always has to be urged or pushed through some sort of revolution. And then it has to be. So they thought once the revolution happened, it would just happen. It would just stay. But nobody wants to be in the communist. Nobody outside of power wants to be in a communist country. So the communists have to then hold those people in house. That's why you had 30 million people executed in Russia over the years, or Russia and between Russia and China and such. Because they were trying to hold those people in, trying to keep the revolution alive and keep people in the communist society, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. That's why Russia failed in the early 90s, and ultimately they've made a resurgence, but they're not nearly what they were under the USSR. They're not nearly what the power that they reigned in, and they kind of just went through because they wasted all the technology and things that they got out of World War II when they because both sides raided Germany for any technology or anything like that, and Russia took theirs back. And have you seen the movie Monuments Men?
Yes,
I love that movie. And it tells a very unique
story. It's a true story.
It's true story.
In fact, if you ever go to Monterey, California, a lot of those pieces that were found because of that group are in a museum up on the mountain overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
So, but see,
Monterey,
to that
California.
point. So, I completely recommend the movie. There's a lot of stars and stuff in it, but that's beside the point. The story is a very good story, and these guys go and they actually they're looking for lost artwork, or stolen artwork that the Germans had stolen from France, Belgium, you name it, and they're trying to preserve these pieces and get them back to where they belong, whether they're public pieces or if they're private pieces. They're trying to get them back to their owners. And in this movie, they're all of a sudden they're not just pushing against the Germans to try to find this stuff. They're now trying to outpace the Russians because the Russians are taking it. On the other side, they're trying to take it just almost the same as Hitler was doing, and the Russians were trying to take it back to Moscow, and so Hitler was trying to gather all the world's art under him because he was an artist and it was special to him, I guess. And so he was taking all these pieces and going to create the world's largest museum for it. I can't remember what they would call it, the Führer's Museum or something like that. But then now the Allied troops were split between the U.S., Britain, and France, and then you had trying to find pieces, and then you had Russia trying to find pieces on their side, and they were in a race to find as many of these pieces as possible, because we had a different aspect of it on our side than they do on theirs. Same, this happens. The same thing happened with technology. The more technology they could take back, they wanted it. They wanted to keep it. They wanted to use it. So they use it. They spin it, and now they didn't follow up like the rest of the countries did, which took and followed up and built upon that technology. Russia never really, didn't really do that. They built militarily, but then they kind of subsided. They ran out of money. They overspent. They weren't successful. That's why they beat us to space with Sputnik, because they took that technology from Germany, while our technology, we had to end up developing a lot of that technology on our own. But we did take, rocket scientists and things like that that came to the U.S. But, that also is how we helped build the first atomic bombs. Came from a lot of those same scientists in Europe that we smuggled out of Europe under Hitler. So it's a very interesting time. But think about this. We don't want to live in a Marxist society. You lose all of your power as a person. You can't worship the way you want to worship. You can't even move around the way you want to move around. You have to have the right paperwork, the right place. These are the things that they ultimately ended up. I mean, you saw a piece of it under COVID, where people were.
You can't run your business.
You couldn't move without having the COVID card.
You can only have one.
Where's your paperwork?
One piece of toilet paper out of that pack. Put your finger through it. Reaganomics, baby.
You know what? Probably the biggest industry that built out of that was
toiletries.
I would say the biggest industry that built out of COVID was the bidet industry.
Oh, yeah.
There are more bidets for sale now than I think I've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And most people are like, never even thought about it. But after COVID, during COVID, you thought about it. You're like, oh, my gosh.
Well, you could be like India and your toilet's on the floor and you got to squat down like God mentioned.
Yeah. India, there's a few others. Is it Vietnam that has something like that still?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So does
Japan.
I think Thailand has them like that too.
Yeah. But there's a reason for that, though.
It's the proper. It's the proper
position for
it. That's why so in the U.S. we have a toilet, and then they came out with the squatty potty that allows you to put your feet up in that position. Mm-hmm. So you're still sitting on the commode.
Right. We went totally off topic.
I think I'm about talked out for today. But anyway,
I think so too. But I do think next week we're gonna have a great show.
I think so. Nancy Tate will be on.
Yeah, we had the Republican Party meeting this Monday. We can tell you that we've got Trump signs. We've got hats,
Trump gear, shirts.
If you want to reach out, you can reach out to us on our website.
You can get this right here, the second district.
Let me zoom in on you, Mark.
All right. So this one right here is just a little $10 shirt that we can get.
Wait a minute. Let me go back. All right, do it again.
All right, there you go. Mm-hmm. All right. Then we have a couple of shirts that show Trump in his glory after the first assassination attempt. Of course, now we didn't even talk about the second assassination attempt this week. I don't know how we missed that one. I think Beshear kind of like threw us off with this executive order
today. He knew we were coming on our show today.
I had full intention to talk about the second assassination attempt. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit later next week or something. But it's and so we have a couple of things coming up. We have October 3rd. Oh my gosh, is it in Painville with Nancy? No.
It's October the 3rd. Is at the
fairgrounds,
farm building. Yeah.
It's at the fairgrounds here in Brandenburg. So October 3rd,
fundraiser,
be a Nancy Tate meet and greet, and she's working on one out in Painville later on.
Bring your checkbook.
October 19th, we will have a chili supper. It will be at down by the river at. I'm trying to remember the name of the facility as Sidney Durham's event
the
center.
Old Bob Evans, the old
not
Bob Evans,
the old
Famous Little Dave's.
Where Little Dave's used to be down by the river, just past. It's the next building, just past the Daily Grind.
Before you go up the hill for Jailhouse Pizza.
Yeah, it's between the Daily Grind and Jailhouse Pizza on the right hand side there.
Don't forget about the Republican Party picnic with Rand Paul and Senator Mitch McConnell.
That will be. Oh, actually, that's come up September 28th. It's so for the Republicans out there that would like to attend
or see your senators.
Yeah, and it's a $35 cost to attend that. It is. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I'm sorry.
No, I got it.
I didn't even think about putting that out there.
Hold on, I got it.
Is
picnic.
I just got the new. I just got the new one today. Where's that at?
I did too on my phone, but I'm trying to get it and see if it's in my email.
Yeah.
Attend the Republican Party picnic.
Oh, here it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nope, that's not it. I thought that was it, but it's not. It's from the right person, but I missed the...
When all else fails, Republican Party, GOP statewide picnic for the Republican Party. It says $35 admission per person.
It starts at 12:30. That's what I was trying to get to.
Shelbyville, Kentucky, 12:30 to 3 p.m. and Eastern. It's got special guests and speakers, Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell. You can get your tickets online at rpk.org/picnic. Or by mailing a check to, well, you can just look at the flyer, but you can Google this. It'll come right up, or you can click right there when you pull it
if you go to rpk.org, that's probably the best way to go and check it out. They'll have live music, yard games, family-friendly barbecue, and more. It's a lot of stuff going on.
And conservative values.
Lots of conservative values going around. You'll be able to see and hear from Rand Paul. You'll see Mitch McConnell. They also have the Kentucky's congressional delegation, the statewide constitutional officers, and the General Assembly leadership. They're all invited. They're expected to most likely be. So just go out to rpk.org and check out. It's rpk.org/picnic, and that'll take you right to the picnic page.
Yeah, if you go to the org site and can't remember the rest of it, the picnic shows up as a pop-up, so you're going to get hit.
Yeah,
no
so
what,
so check that out. It's fun. They haven't had one in several years, and so it's awesome to kind of see it come back. Our next regular meeting is going to be in October at 2714 Brandenburg Road. That's going to be on the 21st. We will be having our chili supper on the 19th, and we're also working on a Trump train to see anybody that wants to get in and go around and drive around and display your Trump gear and your Trump decorations and things, and celebrate and support Donald Trump as for our next president. We'll get a train together, and basically we'll go throughout the county. The second thing on that is we're working out details on routes and things. We'll have to work with local sheriff and city police to make sure that we have the right to do it the right way. And then, but then it'll be a chili supper, a donation. We're asking like $10 donate, get some get a donation of $10 to get you a bowl of chili, some other treats and food and things, and that'll help us pay for signs and things like that as we go forward. So let's see, and then our Christmas party. Well, the next thing will be we will have a celebration night, election night, on the 5th. We're working on a location for that, so more to come on that one. But we will get together probably somewhere between 6-7 o'clock and for a few hours, and as the results for Kentucky come in. Then December, December the 12th, we will have our annual Christmas party. That will be at right now it's at the venue. We're scheduled to have it over at the venue at Roberts Family Farm, and that will be $35 a person for that as well. So there will be some a little bit of entertainment and some and guest speakers. Those will be announced later, but we're it'll be awesome to have you guys come out and join us.
Surprise.
So
That's a lot.
a lot of stuff going on. So,
Yeah.
and you can always look in the, we're going to have an ad in the Meade County, or I'm sorry, in the Messenger coming up. So you'll see that. And so you'll get a replay of all this stuff in the Messenger here soon.
So I'm going to leave you with this thought. If everything was okay and our democracy was in so much trouble, if the Republican Party candidate was going to win, then why do people keep shooting at him? Who is dividing our country?
Yeah.
Come back to and see us next week as we close in on these thoughts. Mark, good seeing you again, buddy.
We'll talk to you soon. Y'all have a good one.